We signed the lease.
Yeah.
And we looked at each other. We're like, what now?
What do we do now? Like, really? Now we have a business. We have no idea how to teach a cycling class. We're not certified.
Bartending basically taught me how to like talk to people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, selling has taught me how to.
You gotta sell and
you gotta
talk
sell
to people and be
talk to
comfortable.
people. As long as you believe in something and you have a vision, we had this huge vision that we knew where it was going to take us and where it was going to be, and we just kept going and we kept fighting. He goes to me, he's like, you remind me of someone. And I said, okay. He goes, you remind me of a kid with a dream. Do you know who that is? And I said, who? He goes, that's me. I'd never forget also him telling me this. Success is a lonely road, and I'm going to take it all the way to the bank.
All right. This is episode
All right.
3
Welcome back.
of Risk and Hustle with Tatiana.
And Val.
All right. I think we're starting to get the hang of it. It's not taking as long to set up, but still a little long. I think we'll get
I think it's taking pretty long, but it's all right. We got ourselves some notes, so we're not all over the place.
So
well,
this
it's not
episode,
all over.
yeah, you really are all over the place. But anyway, this episode, we are discussing basically the birth of Boost.
Yeah.
Boost in general, our first business.
How it started.
Yeah.
You guys are going to love this.
Yeah, this is exciting.
So,
Yeah. Well, anyway, so we're back from California. We had a baby. We're, living life, unemployed.
no money,
No money.
no idea what the hell we were doing.
No,
What
you were
next?
hustling though. You were all over the place, taking on all these like little side gigs with your friends at the
Yep.
time, So that was great. So he was working all day. I was home with the baby, doing a lot of online research, checking things out online and coming up with ideas. And then do you remember we were watching this show on TV? It was a reality show while I was watching a lot of it. And then I would just play it for you and be like, oh, look at this. And we know how much you love reality TV.
No, yeah, it was great.
Anyway,
A lot of fun.
the show was about this cycling studio in California, and the energy was so amazing. I remember watching it and because I hate cardio really. And I remember watching wow, I would take one of those classes. It was so alive. They were riding to the beat of the music. So everything was just cool.
It was something new. It was very different.
Yeah.
Nothing we knew about.
No, nothing. I mean,
knew
yeah,
about.
we really knew no idea.
I've seen spin classes. I've never seen anything like that.
Right.
Some people call it spin. Some people call it cycling classes,
Anyway, a couple of days later, it was really weird. As I was looking for businesses online, a cycling studio popped up that was for sale.
Yep.
In Newtown, Connecticut. I remember you coming home. I was really excited when I found this. And he comes home and I'm like, what about opening a cycling studio?
And I was really dirty from work.
Yeah.
And I was like, really?
Well, I kind of started with my,
Of course.
I have an idea.
Always. I have an idea. And I'll be like, oh, God, I'm so tired. Can I just lay down?
And I was just like, hear me out. And I'm like, there's nothing like this around. It could be really cool. And he's like, we've never taught before. And I'm selling it oh, I'm going to teach. I'm going to go get certified. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Whatever. Right.
Yep.
So I finally convinced him to go check out this space just for the heck of it. I thought they were open and they weren't open at that time. So we checked out the space. It was really cool. I think how I was able to sell him on it was the sound in the space. You love music.
I just loved the way it was. I was like, oh man, it reminded me of a club. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was just the music and everything. I was like, this could be cool.
Right.
But it wasn't that I was thinking for me. I was just like, I like the music and everything. I was like, oh, this is going to be a good gig for you.
Yeah.
Didn't even think that this whole thing was going to be laid at
I always
me.
wanted to get fit and everything. So I'm like, this is perfect. So I forgot the exact number. I'm sure I have it somewhere of what they wanted, but it definitely was out of our price range. I mean, there's no way.
For sure.
I think it was low. It was $40,000-$50,000 that she wanted for the space.
That was a lot still.
But so I went in, I'm like, okay, how can I present that I want the space, but sound like a professional business person that I know what the heck I'm talking about.
You were pretty good with that, though. You
I
were
know.
always good with that.
I don't know how, but so I remember kind of walking away from it like, hey, like you don't really have a business here for sale.
Well, because you asked, I remember you asking for, even though like at that time I had no
asking
idea, but you had
numbers.
asked for numbers and you looked at it and you're like, okay, well, you closed. You don't have any clientele.
Yeah, like
There's no
you
business. What
can't
are you
sell me
selling?
clients that now you have a closed business. Those clients are gone. They have moved on. They found new workouts. So I was just like, okay, thanks. You know, I got the information and I was just like, doesn't sound like it could really work for me. But deep down, I was like, I was in love. I was like, this is it. We have to do this. So I remember reaching out to the landlord. And I was just like, listen, I know she's selling the business, but there's not really a business there to sell. I'm really just interested in taking on this space and maybe purchasing like the bikes from her because I'm going to need bikes anyway. She only had like 10 bikes.
Yeah.
And possibly the equipment.
Yep.
But I wasn't even like super excited about the sound system because I rather, you know, put it on a credit card and buy new ones.
Yeah, we wanted to.
I didn't have the money to really pay her for it anyway.
But I think she knew that she was going to lose it anyways.
Right. And she just needed out of the lease.
Yeah, she wanted out of the lease, I think, at that point. But also the landlord was also worried because, you know, who was going to take it. He never met us. So I remember he called us and he's like, I want to meet you guys and see, you know, and when we went to meet him, he was like, wow. He like looked at us. We were young. You know, he's like, I think you guys remind me of somebody and I think you guys would be great for this.
Yeah.
I'm thinking like, okay, well.
At one point, I almost felt like he was selling the idea to us.
Yeah, but.
And I was just like, wow, I thought I was here like trying to present myself to you. But he seemed like he really liked us. So he just said, as long as you have like capital, you know, to get this thing up and going.
I remember looking at each other.
You're going to be good. And I was just like, yeah, absolutely. We're
so confident, and you're like, yeah, we have. And I'm thinking like, oh my god, what is this guy gonna ask? Like, you know,
I know.
Luckily, our credit was good.
We always had really
we always
good
took
credit.
care of that. We always made sure, even though like we had some debt, we took care of that.
Yeah, we were paying minimum. You know, we had debt, but we paid the minimum.
Long story short,
we got the space.
We signed the lease. I never forget the day he called us in, and we're still like worried if he's going to ask us to see our assets and everything like that, because technically that's what they do.
Yeah.
But we went there. We're like, you know what? Screw it. Let's go in there and see, like, whatever happens.
I remember driving
to
that office.
So
I was just like, I cannot believe we're about to sign. I think it was a 3-year lease.
Yeah, and at that
with
time,
a 5-year option.
It was scary.
So scary.
And when we got there, apparently the person that owned the studio decided that they were going to just sell the equipment. They were just trying to get something out of it. You know, to build a studio like that costs a lot of money.
Oh my God.
It's like around $250,000. It would have never happened for us, but it was ready. It was there. So all we had to do is basically, you know, get some bikes. So they had 10 bikes, I think there. That's what we started. And
he asked, like, are you interested in it? And we were like, yeah, well, let's look at the bikes.
Yeah, we got to buy them anyway. So I went and looked at it. Knew nothing about it. They looked okay. I did a little research to see how much they were. She threw a number and I won half of that.
Yeah.
And I was like, listen, either because, you know, brand new bikes, they were around like $3,000, $3,200 of those. I think
bike, I don't remember.
Around there. I'm not really sure now. It's been a long time ago. But so she took it. She took that. We signed the lease.
Yeah.
And we looked at each other. We're like, what now?
What do we do now? Like, really? Now we have a business. We have no idea how to teach a cycling class. Yeah. We're not certified. I don't even know how to run a business. Like, what do I need? Can I open a business without a certification? We don't know.
See, that's the thing. Is like sometimes when you like, you know what you want to do. Like, I don't know. I think we just saw a vision. We were confident. We're like, all right. You know what? Let's do this. We'll figure it out. We've always been like that. And we still are like that.
Yeah.
We're still like, we always say, we'll figure it out. And somehow, like, you know, we work hard.
That's exactly it. You don't need a business plan to chase a calling. You just need the courage to say, let's figure it out.
I love that you're reading all these notes. By the way, she got me on these notes because, again, it's like she thinks I'm all over the place. But, I mean, this is a podcast. We're supposed to just explain it.
I know, but the notes is just to keep us on track. Because you can't go from that to like the end of the story and then back to the middle.
This is supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
Let's start our...
Well, I get it. So anyway, we finally did that. And
then we went to the studio. When we got there, we took our son.
Yeah.
And
we played music.
We were, we put the music on and we were just like sitting there dancing like, oh, and like,
Yes.
and then what the hell do we do? What,
Yeah.
like, what's the next step?
So I
We knew
think that's
nothing.
the real work really started at that moment, was setting up the business, setting up the LLC, insurance.
Yeah.
Like, you need insurance now. Like,
Oh my
you're
God. And
teaching classes.
that's another thing that was like crazy. The insurance was so expensive that we didn't even know about.
We need a software for booking classes. We wanted to do things super legit. I think that was one thing with us.
Yeah.
We always wanted to open things and then make it seem like we were bigger. Yeah, way bigger. We were organized. We had it all figured out, and we really didn't.
We knew nothing.
But so we set up. I remember working on branding. You were painting walls.
Basically, like that was, we kind of set jobs.
We defined our roles really.
You have to always, that's one thing that we were always good at too, is that we defined roles. You're like, okay, I'm going to do the business plan, all this stuff, because I was like, I know nothing about this.
Yeah.
I was like, I'll take operations and see. So
the manual, you were painting walls.
I started doing basically, we couldn't afford to get, contractors or anything. So I was like, okay, I'll figure this out, I'll figure that out. I started painting walls, doing this, researching, and watching videos and doing all this, because I'm like, okay, taking classes. We would go to like
New York City. I mean, we were everywhere
just to see like what everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
And we finally came to BoostCycle, which we didn't know anything about.
Right.
And I was like, let's, because everybody was talking about it. Like, oh, you guys got to go check this place.
Yeah, BoostCycle was just kind of...
It was just kind of like blowing up at that time. So we went there, we took a class, and I was like, wow.
Yeah.
This is what I got to do, but I'm going to make this on steroids.
Yeah.
So I took that thing to the next level. I was like, I'm going to sit there, I'm going to practice, I'm going to figure it out. And I would sit by which again, like, let's get back a little bit. We got some instructors, we brought some people in that, some of them
built the studio, and then we were like, wow, the plan is to open in like 3 weeks. We need to hire
pretty
instructors.
Fast. We started doing some research. I remember on Facebook and, just saying some things. And then we were like, we got to find instructors. But every instructor that we found
was certified.
Mad Dog certified, which was, oh God, I hate this, but it was boring.
I know you went to some of those classes and you were like, I am never going to teach this type of class.
This is so boring to sit in this bike and this and that. And every time they would come to train, they're like, oh, we can't do any of these things because I'll lose my license and this and that. I'm like, well, no one's going to come. This is the whole point, is that we have to be different.
So surprise to Val at that moment, I realized that I loved riding. I actually did love it, but I couldn't teach it. So when I got on to practice like writing and talking and trying to be like motivational and explaining stuff, I was just like, I can't do this. I couldn't breathe.
And me, I just started doing researches, and I was like, it wasn't the point, like I wasn't going to teach. I was just like, maybe I'll do some training on the trainers or whatever, just to show a little bit. It wasn't something that I wanted to do, because I was like, it was just too much for me, but it was hard because in the beginning, like, we opened the first month, 2 months, 3 months, it was like dead. We probably had like 1 customer, 2 customers, 3 customers, I remember. And then we're just like, man, is this really going to work?
Yeah.
Like what do we do?
But once we opened, things really started picking up slowly, and we only had 10 bikes. But then the classes that were popular would fill. And then the other time slots weren't filling. So that was challenging, trying to figure out what times work, what times didn't.
Yeah, we're just trying to figure out times, because most of them, like, wanted to get there first thing in the morning, like 5:30 in the morning.
Do you remember our main colors?
Oh, my God. The colors were horrible. I remember, I think they were blue.
And neon green.
Or something like that.
We are so not blue and neon green. I don't know why we thought that was our colors.
I don't know. I don't know why I wanted something bright at that time. Little did I know that, like, within a week or two, like that. I think, you know what it was? I know exactly what it was.
What?
Once we started, like, because I think when we went to this place, I think I saw it. It was like all colorful, and I was like, oh, let's just kind of like.
It was alive and bright.
And I was like, oh, let's do that. But boy, was I wrong. That was pretty bad.
I think we had it only for like a year, and then we were over it.
Anyways, so that's how the story started. Basically, we started with that, and we were just like, okay. Then slowly, it was like, okay,
Picking up.
the instructors that we had just wasn't working. We probably had like 2 good ones.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, okay, like this is not working. We got to figure this out. And I remember you saying, you're like, I think you need to try this. I think people will like you, you know? And I'm like, but I like to lift weights. I
Well,
like to.
because you would be like putting the classes together in between like the instructors
I was
and
never
you're teaching them. And I'm like, you need to get up there.
but I was never in front of people. So it was like, it was kind of like being an entertainer. So
Yeah.
it was like one of those things I was like, I don't know, I'm nervous, this and that. So then I went one day and I sat in the class by myself after like we built everything, and I was like, I
I
started.
feel like you were forced to teach your first class because somebody didn't
Somebody-
show up.
But before that, like I was training myself,
ready,
just
yeah.
kind of like trying to find ideas for them,
Right.
you know. And I'm like just sitting there, and I'm like, I would find this music, and I wanted to play to the beat because
Yes.
everybody was just so offbeat, like
Yes.
just
And that always drove you crazy.
that drove me crazy. I was like, this could be better. This is like basically DJing. Like you get the songs where they match,
Right.
and you ride to the beat and you dance to the beat. You do push-ups and things
Yes,
like that.
exactly.
And I was like, this is what it's got to be done. And then that day, I remember somebody didn't show up, and you're like, you got to just jump in. I'm like, oh my God, we have all these people.
You were so nervous.
I was so nervous. I jump in
We
there.
couldn't tell them like, hey, I forgot what happened. Something happened when the person was on their way.
I think
Yeah.
she just kind of like, I think I remember a little bit. We had to cancel one class, and then
Yeah.
she just kind of didn't show up. Or
Right,
whatever.
right.
You know,
Anyway.
things like that happen. So I jumped in and I did that class, and I was like, wow, that was like, I felt for some reason that it was like, it was very different. I was like, man, this is amazing. I can do this.
Yeah.
Just feeling like I felt like it was so weird because the energy I got from the people,
Mm-hmm.
it changed me. I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, like I feel their energy.
I
was
feel like at
it-
that point is when you were really like, you believed in the brand.
that's when I started.
Yeah.
And I was like, I could actually do this. I was like, let me
Yeah.
do this and figure it out, and like, let's keep going. And you're telling me like, I think, you know, here's what we need to do now. And I'm like, what? And you're like, we need to rebrand. And I was like, wow,
Yeah.
here I go.
Well, we only had 10 bikes too.
Yeah.
So that was the whole thing. And by the way, Boost Bowls, it was Boost Juice at the time, started right before we opened up the cycling studio because I just needed juices to carry at the studio. But we'll talk about that on the next episode. Otherwise, we'll go back and forth way too
Yes,
much.
we did open both
Totally.
businesses
Yeah, a month apart.
a month apart, which
Yeah.
we'll get to that. I think we're trying to, like, I guess let's tell the story about
BoostCycle.
how it started, and we'll continue with that
Yeah.
one.
But Boost Bowls was definitely by accident.
Absolutely. That was an accident. So just to get to that too, I was doing basically, once I started teaching,
Yeah.
I was doing 3 jobs
Yes.
at the same time. The reason for that was because we weren't really making money.
No.
Neither one of the stores were making money. You know, we were going on debt. So I had to figure out, you know, I had to feed the family.
Way to make money.
So what do?
You got a third job.
I got a 3rd job. Started bartending.
Yeah. At least you stopped the side hustling with the construction stuff.
Oh my God. I was like, I never worked at a restaurant in my life. And I never forget showing up that day at a restaurant and in Newtown and meeting a guy looking for like just anything, basically busing tails or whatever. And he looks at me and he goes, I don't need a waiter. I don't need a busboy, but what I really need is a bartender.
You look like you can handle it.
So then he goes to me, you look like a good looking guy, you know, you can, you know, just jump back. And I was like, I've never made a drink in my life. He's like, listen, anybody can learn how to make a drink.
Yeah.
Not everybody can stand behind that bar. And I was like, okay.
Personality, I
Personality
guess. And you're not actually super social either, but even though with the bike, I felt like when you went up on the bike, you became a different person.
I'm not, but see, this is where I say life, you never know where life takes you. And
Yeah.
everything that I've done, I feel like life has taken me into certain things that I've learned. Every single thing that I've learned
Yeah.
until
It's
today
that moment.
has been bartending basically taught me how to like talk to people.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Socialize.
selling has taught me how to, again, I guess
You
that
gotta sell and
you gotta
talk
sell,
to people and be
talk to people.
comfortable.
But bartending did help me a lot.
Yeah.
You know, it taught me a lot of things in there. So
That was so out of your comfort zone, I will say. I
really
could not
was.
believe you were.
I would have never
bartending.
thought, like, but see, in life, you never, you know, you just got to do things
Yeah.
that whatever comes your way, you got to take it.
I
for
think what made it a little bit more comfortable too, because I hated the thought of my husband bartending, but it was a nicer like restaurant and not
Yeah, it wasn't like a kid's place.
like
It was
exactly.
more where grown-ups went, like
Yeah.
it was more like a dinner thing.
And that was in Newtown. So we were like, this is actually a perfect opportunity for you to meet people.
Oh yeah, that's because remember when I came to you and I was like, yeah, bartend, and you're like, you're not gonna bartend. I was like, listen, this could be a great way for me to meet people since we have our businesses very close.
And the owner of the restaurant didn't mind. He said, absolutely. So we took that as full advantage of having cards and handing out free classes.
I said, can I please, like, as you know, I was like, I have my businesses around here. Is it okay if I hand out some cards and bring, and he's like, absolutely. He's like, do your thing,
Mm-hmm.
He was, he was amazing.
Yeah.
And he's like, listen, as long as you keep these people seated here and you keep them happy, I don't care what you talk about or whatever, he's like, just keep going.
Yeah.
And that's where it started.
It did.
I started meeting people there left and right. I felt like a therapist being in there, like literally listening to people's stories. Like I cared, I'm like, I would sit there and then I'd be like, yeah, so just so you know, so I own a business. I do this and I do that. Like, you should come and take my class.
And they did. People really did come.
And slowly it was one like word to mouth and they started telling each other and here and there. And it got crazy.
It did.
It just like the BoostCycle started happening. All these moms would come and then they brought their husbands.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens then? We only had 9 bikes and it was tough because it would
it was only 9. It was 9 plus the instructor.
Plus the instructor bike. So it was tough. We could the classes would fill up really quick and everybody was telling us, oh, you need more bikes. And
then more classes. We talked about, okay, we can add more classes, but the problem is you're very limited, right? Like, so our 5:30 class, people that worked at 8 a.m. had to be at the 5:30 class. So even if I did a class after it, it wouldn't have made a difference. It just
wouldn't work. But we had no money. We couldn't afford to get into more debt to get more bikes. Mm-hmm. And as they say,
it wasn't even really a thought, I think, at that moment because of the debt we were already.
As long as you believe in something and you have a vision, we had this huge vision that we knew where it was going to take us and where it was going to be. And we just kept going and we kept fighting, which, by the way, honestly, did you believe that like this whole thing that happened, like was going to happen? Have you had any doubts?
I think I always have a little bit of doubt, but I'm such a believer that even if that didn't work, it guides us to something else. But I really think in that moment, BoostCycle was like my dream, and we were gonna do whatever it takes to make that happen.
I mean, you would work so hard in this thing, but to me, it was just like I always felt like, is she in this like in it like hard? Because you always would tell me like you have this vision, and when I have a vision, I've always told you like I believe in something, I make it happen.
Right.
But
I think my vision was just a lot bigger than just that one studio. I was trying to figure out the process and get everything like in line because I was hoping we would open another studio. I don't think with any business, at that moment we had Boost Bowls and we had BoostCycle, but BoostCycle was really the focus. And I wanted to grow that. I wanted to open up more studios because I think what we had was incredibly unique.
It was very different.
And till this day, I have not taken classes the way, especially Utah classes. We had some really great instructors come in, but it's just different. The energy is different in that studio, even different from SoulCycle, which is an amazing, national brand that grew.
Yep.
But there was something still very unique about BoostCycle because we took the concept of.
I did a lot of research.
A little bit. Yeah, we mixed a lot.
I checked everywhere. I would go, on YouTube. I would go to different cities, different towns.
I know. I mean, I remember any place that we would go, like on a quick trip. My brother was living in Michigan. We wanted to take cycling classes all over Michigan, but everywhere.
Still didn't feel like, maybe it was just me.
Yeah.
But every time I took my class, did my class and you guys took it, I think it's just, for people that have taken the class that are probably listening to this. They
probably understand.
They understand, but unless you took this class, you really won't understand.
It was very motivational.
That's the thing. It wasn't
just about.
The classes weren't just physical.
Right.
they were actually also mental, because
You were big on the mindset of
it was all about the mindset. Like I would
Yeah.
talk a lot and people would listen. I never forget the days where people would literally come and just be like, and I'm not going to say the name, but a woman came to me one time crying. And I thought like I did something. And she
Yeah.
goes, I just want to let you know that you changed my life. And because of you, I'm actually moving to the city today and starting my life. And she's still to this day there. She has 2 kids now. You know who you are, but that's what kept me going. And I just kept moving and I kept
Mhm.
moving. And I was like, man, I can honestly do this probably for a long time, because it was just that energy that even though I gave it back,
Yeah.
I think for me is like I would feed off of them.
Right.
I was so tired.
I
I
know.
was so tired from like literally working every morning, waking up at, think about it, 5:30 to go there and teach the other class at 9:30,
Yeah.
then go work at Boost.
But your classes really started filling up. But anyway, that was with the 10 bikes. You have to tell the story of what happens at the bar.
So again,
Your biggest tip.
my biggest tip, that's where I'm going to get to, is, as I said in my last episode, no matter what you do in life, you got to make sure that you give 110%. It doesn't matter how tired you are. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You got to work hard and you got to believe in yourself. That's the main thing, is always believe in yourself. Because if you believe in yourself and you have a vision that you see that vision on where you're going to be, you'll make it happen. Even though I was really tired.
Do you remember the quote that was on the wall on BoostCycle?
Yes, your body achieves what your mind believes.
Mm-hmm.
And I put that up there because I believed on it so much that every day I would get there, I would look at that, no matter how tired I was, no matter how angry I was at myself. I'm getting a little teary right now, but because of my son was a year old and I would wake up in the morning, he'd be sleeping. I would come home at night and he would be sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
That was probably the hardest time for me, but I had to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
So going back to having just 10 bikes and we couldn't afford to get any new ones, I show up to work one day after having a crazy day. I was really tired and I get to the bar. As soon as I get there, I never forget, it was 4:15. And I see a guy with his wife at the time, and he's sitting there having dinner. And apparently someone said that, oh man, this guy is giving, the waiters a little bit of a hard time. I guess he didn't like the food or something happened.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then on top of that, he comes and sits in the bar. And I was like, oh God, here we go.
Have to deal with
I was like, now I got to deal with another person after I had this long day. But something told me in my head, I'm like, you never know who you're going to meet. Always make sure to treat everybody the same way you want to be treated. So first thing he asks, I go to him. I'm like, hey, how you doing? What can I get for you? And he looks at me, he goes, I hope your drinks are as good. No, what do you say?
Are better than
your food. And I was like, here we go. And then he looks at me and he goes, do you have Bing cherries? I don't know if, I can't remember which ones they were. The darker cherries, not the ones that they put on little kids' drinks or whatever.
The Shirley Temples.
And I was like, oh my God, I think I just ran out and I only have the other ones. I was like, if I don't make this drink for this guy, I was like, I'm never here again.
Yeah, his service, he's not going to be happy.
So I tell him, I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I'm like, I bring him their waters. And then I just remember next door, we had Carluzzi's. I run next door and I buy this stuff with my own money and I come inside and I ask him, I'm like, what kind of drink would you like? Actually, I asked him before, sorry. And he goes, an old fashioned. I loved old fashioned at the time. And I was like, I'm going to make you a drink, but I'm going to make it my way. And you tell me if you like it. I make this drink and he takes the first sip and he looks at me and I'm staring at him and he goes, wow. He's like, now we're going to talk.
Yeah.
Then he ordered an appetizer. So he orders an appetizer and we start talking a little bit. But long story short, we get into like, it wasn't that busy that day. And he wanted another drink. So I was like, all right, I made him another drink. And then his wife was trying to leave, because I think they had something, but he was so curious to hear a little bit of my story. Cause he's like, hey, is this all you do? And I said, no. I said, I own this and I do this. And then that's when he kind of like his eyes opened up and he goes to me, he's like, you remind me of someone. And I said, okay. He goes, you remind me of a kid with a dream. Do you know who that is? And I said, who? He goes, that's me. And I was like, what is this guy talking about?
Saying that I'm just a kid with a dream.
And that's why I use that now.
You do.
So this old guy very nice guy. I'm not going to say his name, unfortunately, on this because, his privacy. Changed my life. Believe it or not, has changed my life to where I am today, and I will say it to the day I die, and I hope I can return the same thing, the same favor as he did to me one day to somebody. The guy tells me, he basically goes, okay, so you do this and that. He's like, he says to me, like, I like your idea, I like your business and this and that. I'm a business guy, and I'm thinking like, oh, here's another guy. Because I met so many guys there,
So
like
many
people
would like want to do
business ideas and stuff.
Yeah.
And he goes to me, get me the check. And I was like, okay. And so I talked to him about the cycling studio and stuff. And I go get him the check. As soon as I put the check down, he puts a Black American Express card. And I'm like, now, I don't know a lot about that stuff, but anybody that has a Black American Express.
He's somebody.
He's somebody. And he goes, and I want you to take this card and I want you to go buy a year membership for your business. And
he's like, close my bill,
and
then charge me for a year membership, which at the time it's $1,200 for the year to have a BoostCycle membership.
Yes.
So obviously call me.
I called you right away because I'm like, this guy, I was like, what if he's drunk or something like that? I was like, I'm thinking like.
So he calls me and he was like, can you run the card? This guy wants a year membership. And I was like, okay, let me put his name up. But he's never been to our studio. So I was like, I am not manually entering a Black American Express card into our system right now because you met a guy at the bar that just wants to seem cool, and then he's going to dispute this within the next couple of days, and then I'm really screwed. So, and he's like, no, he's not like that. And I'm just like, you just met this guy. Like, no, I'm not doing it. Invite him over to the studio. But instead, I think you did that, but then he ended up inviting us over to his house. Yeah.
So what happened is, and I went to talk to him after, and I said, listen, my wife really doesn't feel comfortable doing that. I would like for you to come in and at least see it and all that. And then he goes, okay. So he pays his bill. His bill was like literally, I think like $80 or something like that. He leaves me a $450 tip. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, that was
needed.
Like, honestly, we needed that $450 that
I was like, God, thank you. As I was like, I was like, there's angels in this world. I was like, this is amazing. Now you think that's a lot.
To just wait.
Oh, wait. You really want to hear this.
So he invited us over to his house.
He takes my number and then he goes, hey, I want your number. I want to talk to you about something. Calls me the next day. He's like, he invites us to go to dinner.
You never thought he would ever reach out.
I never thought he would reach out.
It's like, yeah, here's my number, but you're just never going to reach out. And he did, I think, right away.
Right away. Yep. And then the next day he said, hey, come, I want you to take your wife, come to dinner. And I'm like, okay, like, who is this guy? Why am I showing up to his dinner? Like, what if,
we were so hesitant. It was just like, there's a catch. Like there's something's off here.
But our life has
450.
Yeah, our life has always been very different. We've always met some amazing people in our lives, and I feel like I've always went with the flow. And I said, you know what? Everything happens for a reason. God is watching us, and there's, maybe there's something in this.
Yeah.
So we decided we go to dinner. Here's this Italian guy like cooking us some amazing Italian food. We're having dinner there and we're sitting there talking to his wife. And then he goes, so what's going on? Like, how's business and this and that? And I tell him, well, everything is fine, but we're having a little issue because we're not being able to expand because we only have 10 bikes.
Mm-hmm. We're getting riders. The classes are filling up.
And he goes, well, what's the problem? And
I said, just buy bikes.
Buy bikes. And I said, well, yes, but I can't afford it right now, so I need to. That's why I'm working. We're making
money first.
We're making some money so I can put it in. And then he goes, okay, well, in this case, he takes his checkbook, writes a check for an extra 20 bikes.
Yeah.
To make.
Well, he asked us, like, how much is each bike? We told him.
Yeah.
And then he calculated it and then handed over a check.
Yeah, because he said, how many can you fit? And I said, well, I could fit probably 30, 32. He's like, let's make it 30 even. And he goes and writes a check. And I was like, what is this guy doing?
And I was just like in shock. And I'm like, no, we can't take your money. What do you mean? What do you want from this? Is there a contract? What am I signing? Like, nothing. Am I signing my life away? Do I owe you something?
And then he says to me, he looks at me and he goes, if you don't take this check, I'm going to open the same business next door to you. And I'm going to shut you down. And we looked at each other. We're like, what are we doing? We don't know, like, I don't know what's happening right now.
And then I was just real with him. I was like, listen, I can't take this money from you and not know when I'm going to be able to pay you back. So we're in debt right now. You know, we owe our American Express at like what, 25% interest, whatever it was at the time, 28. I have no idea.
We owed almost
So
$40,000.
yeah. And I was like, I can't add 20 bikes and still have all this debt. And I have
Which was
like
double.
no guarantee when I'm ever going to pay you back. And he was just like, don't worry about it. Just
He
go
looks
with
at
it.
us and he goes,
He ripped.
when the opportunity comes,
Yeah.
he rips out the check. He writes the other check for a full amount of our debt in
Plus
the bikes.
The bikes.
And he goes, when the opportunity comes, you take it. But just never forget that when the day comes, you do the same thing for that person.
Yeah. He was a big believer on paying it forward.
That was our angel.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't believe in this, then I don't know what to tell you. But you got to make sure it's
no strings attached.
no strings attached.
I mean, really,
he was a business guy.
Yeah.
He came, you know, he lived, I'm going to tell you, like, he lived in East End, which I never even knew. Like, I never even been to that area in East End when he invited us. And he was a business guy, a very wealthy business guy that has, he is, he still is. Yeah. And this is the guy that literally paid our debt and changed our lives. And after that, we went home and we cried and we were just like, that's when I said, if you don't believe in this, I don't know what else in life can you believe in. This is why you got to keep going and do good, and you never know who you're going to meet.
And that really pushed us. That's when the rebranding happened, and
that's
we changed things up. We took, we bought more bikes. We had the studio. We brought a whole different energy. And at that point, we were energized. Like, we really believed.
Because it just showed us that, you know what, God wants us to keep going. And there's a reason why this came into our life. And we just kept fighting and fighting and fighting. And then we kept going.
We rebranded. Everything looked amazing. You came up with the owl and the cycle.
We sat there for days working on that stuff, the rebrand, and making sure that this is going to be different. I put the lighting in there. I made it a Vegas.
Do you remember you literally added that lighting, and it would be to like the beat of the music. It was flashing.
It was like a club.
It was insane.
I never forget the first day I did the class. I turned them off.
No one knew that the lights would be doing that.
I had 30 people in that class.
Yeah.
And once I pressed that button, I turned those lights on, it changed everything. Everybody was just like, wow. And that's when it started going crazy.
It did. It was amazing.
So that's the story of BoostCycle.
But you kept that going, the studio, and you were still working bartending. We were running Boost Juice. But I think you just got tired.
I was drained.
You were drained.
I was drained. As much as I believed in it and everything else, I was drained because we just couldn't figure to duplicate the instructors.
No, we were losing instructors and then having to find new instructors and then retraining. I think that really took the life out of you.
It was exhausting.
Yeah.
And as much as we were looking to expand on other places, I was like, I don't know if I can do this. It was tough. I was losing a lot of weight, teaching a lot of classes, and it was kind of coming to an end.
For you.
For me. And then
you started giving up, I think, a little bit after the whole rebrand. I mean, you loved the energy, but then there was days that some classes wouldn't feel like others. You know, I think when you taught those 30 people, it was amazing. But then when you had to teach 5, it just really took a toll on you.
Midday.
It's almost like their energy is what fueled you and kept you going. And when you didn't have it, you were just like checked out. You were drained.
Well, after a while, you also think like, okay, you know, I opened this business. I really thought that I would find really good instructors and I would keep going with it. Yeah. You know, I didn't think that it was just going to be all on me. And it was it was tough for my body.
It was all on you. As much as I could do in the back.
I was exhausted. So it came, and then I also never forget that day when one of our instructors came to us and was like, hey, have you guys ever thought about selling your business? And I look at you and I was like, oh my God, this is another sign.
Yeah. No, I think we were ready to like check out, and we kind of mentioned
we were talking about it. Yes,
yeah, I think we put it out there a little bit that we really weren't 100% into the cycling studio anymore. And then that
Well,
instructor
What was also the Boost Bowls
was taking
taking
off.
off a lot. Like it was getting really busy, and we were trying to
Do both.
do both. It was just way too
And I
much.
feel like we were half-assing both and
Yeah.
not doing one amazingly.
Yeah.
So we really started kind of just putting it out there that BoostCycle may have to close down or sell or something. We just wanted to move on from it. And then luckily one of our instructors had interest. And it's crazy. She has an amazing story too, because she started with us. She was a Groupon
She was a
customer.
Groupon customer, and she was a good trainer.
So she went in.
Learned a lot from me.
So she went in to rode. She was just a customer for a year. And then became an instructor for a year.
Yeah.
And I think she was really, you were able to mold her, and kind of train her exactly how you taught classes. And she learned. She really paid attention and learned.
Her energy was amazing too. And
she was the only other class that I really loved taking.
It was the best person to sell it to. And I was actually kind of happy that we didn't have to either close or whatever.
Or sell it to somebody that would turn it into another
spin studio.
Another spin studio that wasn't BoostCycle. So when she showed interest, we were excited, and we really wanted to make sure it happened because she was the perfect fit, and I mean, even before taking on the studio, she really helped a lot. She was always at the studio. She was always teaching classes. She definitely did a lot more than just, instructing. She was involved.
She was she had a lot of business in her. Like she knew about it and she was good, but
a good mindset. So anyway, we ended up selling.
Selling.
I'll
say that.
BoostCycle.
Did you ever feel like that was like a fail?
It was hard. I did. I felt like we were giving up, especially when you first mentioned that you wanted to close or,
I never saw it as a failing thing though.
No, I get it. But I think for that moment, that was our first business.
Yeah. It was
so I felt like to let go of it was just
it was hard, tough for me too.
And I still loved it.
3 years of my life, every single day I was there. I would sleep there.
I know.
I put my heart and soul in that place. It was tough, but I don't know if I ever saw it really as failing. It was more like I was kind of angry in the beginning, like when we first sold it, because I couldn't even go back. It kind of hurt.
Yeah.
It was part of me. Still to this day when I pass by.
We sold it right before we were about to open our second Boost Bowls location.
Yeah.
So that was a lot. And then I also was just scared, kind of like, wow, we just let go of that. And then I got pregnant right when we were about to close as well.
Yeah.
So baby number 2, another
we had a lot
child at home, just a lot going on. And it was just all at once. My emotions were really high. It was sad to walk away from that place. It really was sad, but kind of made me happy that it was still going to keep going and I could still go ride, even though I didn't ride a lot that first year after we sold because I was pregnant and I was really sick my entire pregnancy.
Yeah.
But
I was still on the roll. Boost Bowls started and that took off. And man, that was another level. But this is going to be on the next episode, guys.
Yeah.
I just wanted to show you guys a little bit about BoostCycle and mostly to always believe in yourself.
Yeah.
Because of believing and having a vision that we did and basically we're not afraid to take a risk. We are where we are today. So if you ever decide that you want to do something, don't think about it. Don't listen to your family. Don't listen to your friends. Because unfortunately, some of them, I guess I shouldn't say family because family was actually always supportive.
They were supportive. They thought we were nuts though.
They did think they were crazy.
It was like, what are you guys opening up a studio?
Because they didn't understand. But we had a lot of friends that we lost on the way here.
A lot. Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot to this day that told us we were crazy. I don't know if it was jealousy or whatever it was, but
a lot happened.
I have to say, I never forget also him telling me this. Success is a lonely road and I'm going to take it all the way to the bank. So be it.
No, it's true. It's true. But I think everything happened that way for a good reason. Sometimes you need to just focus on yourself and growing. And we went through that time. Unfortunately, we didn't have the time to go hang out and do what a lot of our friends were doing at the time.
They were still,
And they took
partying.
that-
They were still doing things while me and you were. But you also got to understand, like, we were the first one to be married,
Yes.
first ones to have kids. So they kind of distanced themselves. They
But
were still
at the same
doing
time,
things.
we couldn't afford a lot of that stuff
None of-
that they were doing. And at the time, I don't think anybody quite understood and just kind of saw like, oh, they're just being like assholes. They don't want to come to this. They don't want to do that or whatever. But in reality, it was like, I don't know how I'm going to buy, food this week or
diapers,
pay a mortgage,
you know,
diapers,
like,
formula.
Never forget, like, the time where actually, I'm going to be honest, you telling me that, like, I don't think we're going to be able to pay electricity next month. And we had to go to some kind of place in Main Street so they can pay for our electricity.
Yeah.
My God, I never thought that I would ever ask the government for help because I've never been one of those. I always said, I'm going to work my way up and figure it out. But it was the time that we had to do it. And it just, those are the things that people don't understand. The hard times that we did. This is nothing compared to what the actual story is. This is only some of the things that we're telling you. The things that we've been through, the nights that we cried, the nights that we sat by ourselves and we said to ourselves, like, what is happening? Like, what are we doing?
I don't think
doing the right thing?
Nobody. A lot of times I don't like to share those things, not even with like family.
Not even
things
our
were
family.
really hard. No one knew how hard it really was except for us.
The driving to work, upset, crying, trying to figure out like how we're going to make it the next day.
And then you had to snap out of it.
I had to snap out of it because
you had to go teach a class and motivate everybody.
And that's exactly what I did.
But you were motivating yourself all along,
all along. That's what kept me going.
Telling them, but telling you.
The energy. I feel like I'm telling you right now, until this, I'm going to keep like going with that. And I can't wait. So hopefully one day, I think the energy that you get from people when you feel it, there's nothing better than when somebody comes and tells you that, like, oh my God, like, you kind of changed my life, or like, I appreciate everything you do. Till this day, we meet people and they talk to us and they say, you guys are an inspiration. I'm very like weird with things like that because you always tell me you're very awkward because I don't know how to like express myself, I guess, and like just kind of sit there and talk to them. But deep down, I'm like, I'm shaking inside because I'm like,
it means so much.
It means so much when I hear things like that.
And
I'm sorry that if you see me at the gym or you see me at a place and you talk to me and you say things like that, and
he's just awkward.
I don't say much, but deep down, I'm very thankful for you guys and everybody that's been,
Yeah. And that's sharing our story is really for those people, so they understand that keep going, don't give up. Sometimes letting go isn't really quitting. It's just making room for something that's meant to grow. And that's really...
And it's okay to fail. If you're going to fail, it doesn't mean that you failed. It just means that there's something better out there coming for you.
Keep going.
You got to keep going. You got to keep fighting. You got to take that failing as a lesson that you learned something.
Yeah. And
you just keep going. Anyway, this is another one of the stories.
And that's it, really.
I think that's it.
We're going to do Boost Bowls next. It really would kind of launch.
I'm excited for that one.
Juice.
Well, there was Boost Juice and then I came to Boost Bowls.
Yeah. Thank you so much for listening. Episode 3.
Hope
Risk
you guys
and
enjoy
Hustle.
It with Val and Tati.
Yeah, I think the notes helped you. You kind of
stayed
on track a little bit.
I tried to. I was looking a little bit and I kind of lost
You're
control,
like on page 3.
That's all right. I don't need your notes.
Well,
listen, I'm going to speak from my heart. And unfortunately, that's what it's life. That's what it's about. So,
exactly.
I need to just be me.
All right, you be you, honey.
Okay.
I'm loving.
You keep writing your notes.
I like your glasses.
Thank you.
You look smart today.
I am smart. I'm trying to be like you. So, all right, everybody. Ta-ta.
Bye.
See ya.